Hello, hello. Hi, everybody. Hello. If you're watching on YouTube, and I hope that you are, if you're watching on YouTube, and this is the second day, you're probably saying, what in the hell is behind you? Where are you? Is that the new studio? Yes, yes, and yes to those questions. But this is like a restaurant. In other words, this is a soft launch. I've not said on air, like, hey, I'm in the new studio. TC is not here yet. Still getting the bugs worked out. But if my choice is to be at home or in a secretive bunker and doing the radio program with remote equipment, and the technology has really gotten great, or to physically be here on a day when the workers are working around me as they were yesterday, then I choose to be here. So I didn't want there to be mystery. Yeah, that is I call it the splash behind me. And if you look at my social media, you will watch the artist actually making that design. Anyway, more on that to come. Thank you for watching on YouTube. If you're listening to the podcast and you're not watching, you ought to be watching. Today is Wednesday, the 6th of August, 2025. It means that today is the 80th anniversary of Hiroshima. Yeah, today marks 80 years since the US dropped an atomic bomb on Hiroshima, which precipitated the end of World War II. And of course, it was just, 3 days later that the bombing took place of Nagasaki. Maybe I should have made that the poll question of the day today. I didn't. Perhaps I'll do it tomorrow. Garrett Graff is a guest on the radio program today and has written a phenomenal oral history titled "The Devil Reached Toward the Sky." And I'm looking forward to that conversation. No, the Wednesday poll question is, do you live in a gerrymandered legislative district? I admit it. That is a hard question for reasons I will describe in a moment. Thank you to my friends in Shippensburg at Parks Casino, located right in central Pennsylvania, off exit 29 of Route 81, 45 minutes from the state capitol in Harrisburg. It's my casino of choice. Parks Casino, Shippensburg, so close to Hagerstown, Maryland, Martinsburg, West Virginia, the nearby Pennsylvania towns of Chambersburg, Carlisle, and Greencastle. Parks Casino Shippensburg, celebrating military veterans every Monday. Just show your military veteran ID and get a free hot dog lunch with chips and a soda as a thank you from Parks Casino in Shippensburg. Good for you, Parks. That's awfully nice. And then every Tuesday, it's the Parks Casino 50% golden discount. That summer comedy series continuing on Friday with Chris Johnson from the Impractical Jokers comedy tour on August 15. That sounds awesome. Enjoy the facilities at Parks Casino Shippensburg, smoke-free, 500 state-of-the-art slot machines, 48 live dealer table games featuring blackjack and roulette, and a great daily happy hour. Hey, it's always 5 o'clock in Shippensburg at Parks Casino. Get in on all the action. Parks Casino Shippensburg, off Interstate 81. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Yesterday, 33,161 votes were cast. A not too mingling answer. It was a great conversation. Do you open your door to a political canvasser? And 57.33% of those who responded said, no, I do not. What? Why was I asking this? Because on Monday, I had the privilege of speaking to the largest gathering ever of elected state representatives in the United States. This was at an event in Boston. The NCSL was the organization that I was privileged to speak to. And the Wisconsin State House Speaker is Robin Vos. And I was interviewing him, and he was interviewing me in front of a large audience. And he said to me, the Ring video doorbell is the bane of my existence. And I said, why? And he said, because people are not answering the door when they look outside and see that it's a politician. And I thought, that's really interesting. Would our audience open their door to a politician? 60% essentially said no. Okay, today is arguably, and I'm prepared for less voting. I don't know that we'll hit 30,000 votes on this today, but maybe you'll impress me and this will be the case. It's a hard poll question because it requires knowledge. And I know that you're politically focused if you listen to this program, but you'll probably have to go online and really look things up. I did last night. I'm asking, do you live in a gerrymandered legislative district? Where does that term come from? 1812, Governor Elbridge Gerry, spelled with a G, of Massachusetts, his administration enacted a law defining new state senatorial districts. They consolidated the Federalist Party vote in a handful of districts, resulting in disproportionate representation for the Democratic Republicans. That's what they were called then. The district's contorted shape was said to resemble a salamander, hence the title gerrymander. And if you're watching on YouTube, or if you looked at the thumbnail, thank you, Randy, for creating this, that advertised today's podcast, we have the actual map. We have the actual map from Massachusetts, and it's really amazing. The map that gave rise to the term gerrymandering, which means creating a safe electoral seat. And I feel obligated to tell you that gerrymandering remains a problem today, getting a lot of attention, obviously, because of the events in Texas. It's only half of the problem. The self-sorting that I often describe is another big part of the problem. So perhaps many of you are saying, well, Michael, how do I know if I'm living in a gerrymandered district? And I would say, pull up the map. Take a look at the map. There was a bizarre, what was it? It was in Delco, in Delaware County. There was a bizarre map up until a couple of years ago that looked like it was the Donald Duck map. Do you remember the Donald Duck map? We talked a lot about it. Look and see if you have a strange shape. Look and see if communities appear inexplicably disconnected from one another. Look for unusual partisan outcomes. Look for frequent legal challenges. I pulled up last night. And one more thing. Newsweek has some good research on this on a state basis, revealing that much of the worst gerrymandering, this was from a year ago, still relevant, was concentrated in parts of the southern and northeastern United States. The 11 worst offenders: North Carolina, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, Louisiana, Arkansas, Utah, Texas, Ohio, West Virginia, and Wisconsin. And according to the Newsweek analysis, Wisconsin, the most gerrymandered state in America. I last night looked online when I got the idea that this would be a labor-intensive, but a good poll question. I got the idea to look up my own. I looked up my congressional district, which is Pennsylvania's 4th. I looked up my state legislative district, which is the 149th, by the way, represented by a man named Tim Briggs, who I met Monday in Boston because he was at the conference of the state legislators. And then my senatorial district is the 17th. That's Amanda Capoletti. I don't know State Senator Capoletti, but I did write her a letter 2 years ago as a constituent because I was worried about riparian rights in the Poconos. And she replied. Stuff you can't make up, right? Anyway, so with regard to, I'll take the lead and then you can do likewise with your own congressional districts. But I'm represented by Madeleine Dean. And our district, if you follow Cook Political Report, is a D+8. So we lean Democratic. Lean might even be a soft way of expressing it. There was controversy. There was gerrymandering. There was a court ruling in 2018. And now I think it would be incorrect to say that my district is a gerrymandered district. It's generally not considered a gerrymandered district. It was created under a court-ordered map designed by a prior gerrymandered district. So there's a history to it. There's a history to it. But I don't think that mine would be at the top of the list. I see some twists and turns when I look at the map, but it's largely rectangular. When I look at my state legislative district, the 149th, it's got some odd curvature to it, but I can't say based on looking at the geography alone that there's anything suspect. My senatorial district, the 17th, the state senatorial district, does have an odd cutout as I look at the map in the middle of it. So look at your own is what I recommend you doing. And by the way, check out Dave Daly's piece in the Washington Post today. It's of course included in the Smerconish.com daily newsletter, which is already published as I speak. But he has a really good, remember Dave Daly wrote the book Rat Blanked, Rat Effed, and he was a guest on the program when that best-selling book came out, and I was totally taken with it because it was Dave Daly who discussed Operation Red Map, which was a Republican redistricting that took place, I guess, after the 2010 census. Very effective. And a lot of the Democratic states have instituted so-called reform. A lot of the Republican states have been left open to continued gerrymandering. I don't like what's taking place in Texas. It's going to set off a tit for tat. But as we learned from David Wasserman last week on the radio program, Republicans are at a distinct advantage because many of their states have not gone the reform route. So for all this talk of Gavin Newsom responding in kind to Greg Abbott in Texas, it's going to be very hard for him to do. It's going to be very hard for them to do. One paragraph, if I may, from Dave Daly in the Washington Post today, under the headline, Texas ignited a gerrymandering war. We will all pay the price. Yet perhaps more important than ascribing blame is recognizing what has been lost as the bipartisan consensus among voters that this can be fixed has been shattered by politicians behaving badly. In states where the process has been allowed to work, Michigan, Virginia, it has produced genuine fairness. When Republicans win more votes, they win control of state legislatures. When Democrats earn more support, it shifts to them. Where it has been undermined, Ohio, Arizona, Florida, New York, it tells voters that they cannot rein in their own representatives even when they want to, and when Democratic governors suggest these constitutional processes adopted by voters are merely temporary, that the legislature can jump back in and redraw the maps when they think it's necessary to claim partisan gain, there's almost no reason for any state to fix itself. So a little bit of a homework assignment relative to today's poll question. And as I say, I hope there's a good vote on it, but I'll understand if there isn't. I'm asking whether you live in a gerrymandered legislative district. It's a good exercise to pull up your congressional district and look at the map. Pull up your state representative district, your assembly person, and your state senator as well. I'm not saying that the contour of the map alone will tell you what you need to know, but it's a good thing to know. What is your district and who represents you? So go vote. That is the Wednesday poll question at Smerconish.com. Do you live in a gerrymandered legislative district? If you're listening to the podcast and not watching, know that you can watch on YouTube. And by the way, if you're watching on YouTube, check out the daily podcast because we're so proud of all of our offerings. Every day, a piece of the radio program is released as a podcast. And then 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, the book club podcast, because on a day like today, when Garrett Graff is my guest, we're going to want to release that. We have nearly 500 book club podcasts, many best-selling authors. All of them are extraordinary. We don't release the dogs. And frankly, we don't have many dogs. We just don't. It's really good content. And I'm very proud to have the book club podcast out there. So my daily podcast, which is one installment of the radio program, the book club podcast 3 times a week, and give TC some play on TC After Dark, which drops every Thursday. Okay, see you on radio. Like and subscribe if you're on YouTube, please. Like and subscribe and set yourself up for notifications. Enjoy the splash. I'll see you later.